Yo, it is not my fault that my father was not in my life growing up. Reason why I say it like that is because I see a lot of women on social media saying things like, well, only men that say this and only men that watch that are the men that grew up fatherless. You didn't have a proper male role model in your life, which is not the case, but I see it a lot. That's very insulting. So you're basically blaming me because my father wasn't in my life growing up, as though I had any control over what that man wanted to do. Nah, that's not it. Everything a man says does not stem from his lack of proper male role models. Even though a lot of us grew up without a father, you can rest assured a lot of us still had positive role models in our life. And a lot of us still grew up to be very good men.
All right. So I think it's about time we have this conversation about the way it affects the mentality of a young black male to be raised in a single mother home. Now, the brother who initially had the commentary is correct. They have no control over whether or not the father was in the home. Obviously, that's something you can't control. But there are going to be consequences. There's going to be a certain outcome that may be more prevalent because of the situation. For example, we understand that if you put someone in a lower socioeconomic status where they are in an urban setting and in scarcity, the odds become higher that they would be in criminal activity and imprisonment. And in fact, some of that is overly perpetuated and almost like a manifest destiny for a lot of individuals. So we can't ignore the correlation to certain outcomes just because it's not a favorable outcome. So what the brother is trying to do is defend himself. And he may represent a minority of black men who were raised by a single mother who came out okay. But there are many outliers in any situation. And there are some that did not come out okay. And as a woman, you have to brace yourself for what you could be walking into if you deal with a man who was raised by a single mother who didn't go through some form of counseling. You know, I credit like the Nation of Islam for taking young black youth and giving them purpose, giving them honor, giving them valor about their masculinity. There are certain things that are still going to be lacking, but ultimately they give them enough of the tools to improve themselves in a meaningful way. Okay, so there are other social groups and religions and spiritual systems that do that for black men, so we don't dismiss that. We also understand that black women grow in these lower socioeconomic situations, potentially are dealing with some form of deteriorating mental health. Obviously, they're not in the best mental health. Raising a child on your own is no easy task. It is probably very painful for the mother to see the father not be there, and she tries to step into roles for which she is ill prepared to step into with the absence of a father. So it could be a sad situation all around. Nobody's blaming anybody, but you still have to account for what potentially could happen and what outcomes could be when you are dating a single mother raised boy. This is mostly an observation or opinion piece, but this can have some level of validity, and you can find some statistical evidence in scholarly journals that let you know what to expect. So if you look up the demographics, about 72% of black households is still raised by a single mother. Okay? And we have had the conversation of how that affects black women. The commentary has been they are more masculinized. The second bit of commentary has been they don't know how to cooperate with a man. They don't know how to work with a man, etc., etc. Why is this important? Because even though it wasn't her fault that her father wasn't around to give energetic balance in the home, there's still going to be certain consequences, we would all agree. I would also add to that, it's not just that these women don't know how to cooperate with men. They also don't know how to pick them. And I would fall in that demographic myself. And re-establishing and reprogramming and relearning what it looks like to be with a man. And it's not some fairy tale, or it's not some ghetto love story where you go and you clean up Raheem and make him a better man and y'all ride off into the sunset together or in a hoopty together. It's not hanging on to your man while he's chaotic and destructive and in jail and causing all kinds of calamity, but you're down for him because you're a down ass bitch. You know, like things like that, themes like that stick in your head because there is a void there, because these women don't have a tangible representation of a man. Most women marry men that are like their fathers. Well, if you don't have a father figure or a healthy father figure to boot, you are not going to necessarily know how to pick them. So getting with a man who is contemptuous, predatory, chaotic, destructive, a self-saboteur, someone who brings into your life negativity is going to be what you're going to gravitate to, with the absence, in most cases, not all, in most cases, of a fervent, healthy male role model. So why should things be any different for a black male? Well, I'm going to tell you why they should be different. They aren't. So therefore, as a woman, you should have some idea of what to expect when you are dealing with a single mother raised boy. There was a TikTok video that I saw that caught my attention, but I can't find this girl's TikTok video for nothing. But she was saying that the reason why a lot of women have problems with the masculinity of today is because a majority of these men were raised by single mothers. And when we look at their masculinity, it is actually a parody of their mother's attempt at masculinity. Essentially, the mother was trying to overcompensate for the father not being there. In her efforts to try to overcompensate, she produced a watered down version of masculinity. Okay. It's almost like a mockery of masculinity, to be honest with you. And this mockery of masculinity, of her getting loud and aggressive and belligerent and, you know, being stubborn and being forceful. This is what she projected as masculinity, but it wasn't authentic masculinity. So a young man experiencing this day in and day out, and probably not having any healthy, fervent, masculine role models, will inadvertently take on the mockery of masculinity of his mother's. Now, I know that's hard to hear, because a lot of men don't want to hear that shit, and they're automatically going to be defensive and tell me I'm wrong. But from a logical standpoint, this is actually 100% accurate. In fact, it's very, very, very rational. So what you might come to notice is a lot of these men sort of parody the masculinity of their mothers, which is a mockery of masculinity, which is almost like dating a lesbian. Seriously, it's almost like dating a lesbian, because it's not necessarily true, authentic masculinity. This is why we make these little jokes and we call certain guys zesty. If you ever see that kind of zesty label, it's a label that depicts men who are argumentative and combative with women, men who, and when I say argumentative and combative with women, I mean they are really willing to get in the ring and verbally slay women down to their lowest molecules. And rest in peace, we saw that a lot with Kevin Samuels. But put it together, Kevin Samuels was raised by what? A single mother. The guy even said he didn't even come around real masculinity until he got into college. Then he started to reprogram his mind towards a more masculine identity. But think of all the years that he was highly in his toxic feminine. And that's what we see a lot. And that's why a lot of guys identify with him, because there's a certain level of, I'm not willing to see women as this flower, or I'm not willing to see women as a something I need to protect automatically. She has to make me want to protect her. The zesty man is kind of unrealistic, or the zesty man does not necessarily have true masculinity. Sadly, though, they won't ever admit it. And literally all it takes is some reprogramming of the mind. Hell, even Kevin Samuels had to go through a period of reprogramming of his mind. Now, am I saying that he didn't turn into a pseudo misogynist? Of course he did. You know, that was his choice. That was his platform. But essentially, he had to go through some level of growth and development in order to develop his masculinity in the absence of having a father figure. What they learned through rap videos and basketball and all manners of misogynistic undertones is it's more important to conquer a woman than to get a good job, get your shit together, have your money right, feel good about yourself as a man, like who you are, have high self-esteem, focus in on your goals, etc., etc. It's all of this intense focus on conquering women instead of conquering your demons, instead of conquering yourself, instead of pushing yourself to your highest level. There are all this accolades around being a womanizer, around being a player, around being a pimp, instead of being a loving man who can carry his family name and take his leadership to the next level to have something to pass down to his predecessors or to pass down to his successors. You understand? It's a whole difference of a mindset. And so when you're trying to deal with these men, date these men, be with these men, they have this particular mindset that I would argue is very counterproductive in a relationship. Not to mention, they want to be spoiled and treated like a child in a lot of ways. I did the TD Jakes video. And there is a certain level of nurturing, comfort, and support you would give your man as his partner. But when a man is lacking in those areas and he has a deep void because maybe he didn't get it in his childhood, or maybe he got it so much in his childhood that it almost it almost crippled him in a way. Him expecting that from his woman in excess is over the top. It's unhealthy. It's imbalanced. And so giving that to him doesn't make your relationship better. It just puts more burdens on you. And when these men see women carrying burdens, they're not thinking to lift the burdens off of them. No, because they seen their mama get it out the mud. They seen their mama struggle. They seen their mama struggle and watched her struggle with ease. So why wouldn't they still have that same mindset to watch their woman struggle? It wouldn't necessarily be that different now, would it? Think about it for a moment. Think about it. Right? So when you are dealing with a single mother raised boy, it is quite possible that these are some of the things that you're going to have to encounter, endure, or potentially deal with, which could necessarily cause disruption in your relationship. It could cause you to carry on more burdens than necessary. It could cause them to have contradictory messages that they are sending you. It can cause them to have reactions to you that are over the top and considered zesty. And this is just not my opinion. If you observe very carefully,